Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise to respond to the report of the Auditor General on the performance audit on the access for persons living with disabilities to public offices and public transport. I'd also like to acknowledge the Standing Committee on Public Accounts report, the review of the performance audit and the access for persons living with disabilities to public offices and public transport. Mr. Speaker, it should be noted that the bill was passed in 2018, and the performance audit report done by the Auditor General's Office was done in 2019. So obviously this was a rush report, and from the time this report was published, a lot of progressive work has been done, and it has been highlighted by the members on this side. It should be noted, we must acknowledge work that is being done. We have to acknowledge. No government, I must say, no government has made a budgetary line in the budget report on disability. And I must also acknowledge the work done by the National Council of Persons Living with Disability. It's a statutory body, it has a budget on its own, and it works closely with my ministry. Mr. Speaker, we have close to 113,000 people who fall within the disability group. While it is not possible to reach everyone, there are some unreported cases. The ministry does reach out to the persons living with disability in many other forms. These two reports have highlighted the accessibility issues that organizations for persons with disability have been advocating for. The report gives the government a baseline on what is in existence. Of course, we must note what is in existence, and of course, the areas to be strengthened, and to ensure that the inclusion of persons with disability to fully participate without prejudice or discrimination, as well as the ability to easily access public services. Mr. Speaker, I note that you mentioned it's very difficult to climb the steps of the buses. Most of the buses in the country are old, and the new buses obviously have some provisions. And I must say, Ms. Honorable Nico Nawaikula, you're not the only one who travels by bus, okay? You're not the only one who travels by bus. I've heard you say that so many times, I took the bus from here, we do that too. We do that too. We've done it, and we still do it, okay? So let's not say that the opposition takes the bus and the government takes the vehicle. Okay, let's not go there. Mr. Speaker says, since Fiji ratified the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons Living with Disability in 2017, the government has been approaching disability on a twin-peck approach. While we provide grants to make homes and immediate living spaces more accessible to persons, as mentioned by the Minister for Local Government and Disabilities, and other relevant ministries, we work in trying to get more comfort to our disabled persons. We provide disability grants, we have transport assistance, we provide economic empowerment to persons living with disability, school grants, and a number of things that the government has put in place. So to come here and say that nothing has been done to look after our disabled persons, persons with disability, let me say is hogwash. I learned that from my honourable colleague. So, Mr. Speaker, the National Council for Persons with Disability had discussed with the auditors the gaps that existed in the policy of 2008 and 2018. This was raised at the district level during the consultations on the Rights of Persons with Disability Act 2018, and on the lack of awareness on the policy and implementation process. So in order to bridge that, a 5-year implementation plan was endorsed to help the National Council of Persons with Disability with its stakeholders and other organizations that look after persons with disabilities to address these issues. Mr. Speaker, please allow me to address recommendations in the Standing Committee on Public Accounts dated 21. Fiji has accessibility policy that exists throughout relevant government institutions, again, as mentioned by my colleagues from this side. However, as mentioned on page 9 of the auditor's report, while international, I quote, while international and regional obligations are incorporated in national policy and action plan, several opportunities exist to improve efforts to implement them. unquote. The audit further elaborates on weak enforcement. And this is due to lack of institutional knowledge within the enforcement and policy arm. I wish to inform this August House that Objective 1.2 of the implementation plan for rights of persons living with disabilities reflect the need for institutional strengthening, which includes 1, training on the Act, capacity building for the 8 Disability Advisory Committee. We have 18 district disability committees and council members. This includes resourcing of activities through decentralizing of disability services that are predominantly located in Suva and in no other district. The construction and the operations and the opening of the Western Disability Center a couple of months back is going to decentralize the work in relation to disability in the Western Division. Mr. Speaker, the ratification of the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability by the Fijian government has agreed to these principles of convention. These principles are further amplified on the Rights of Persons with Disability Act 2018. In strengthening the recognition on the rights of persons with disability, Fiji has also begun revising its policy to ensure our compliance to the ratified UN Convention. In addition, the budgetary processes which are included for organizations with persons with disabilities in part of that. In 2017, the Fijian government introduced accessibility budget in all relevant ministries. For example, to the special schools. The special schools are now accessing as accessible as inclusive schools are slowly complying with that. But at present, reasonable accommodation is being practiced. For example, we have special schools, and special schools have special grants. Special schools have set up buildings which are accessible to the students. And these grants are more than what the normal school would have. And this is used to buy assistive devices for the children. And for example, if a class has a child with disabilities, they are supposed to be located at the bottom floor of the classrooms. So these things are being progressively done. And in 2017, representative organizations for persons with disabilities, for the first time, were invited to be part of a budget consultations. Okay? Reasonable accommodation was provided, in which Honorable Minister of Economy with his team consulted with these organizations at the NCBD complex. These ensured that people with disabilities' voices were heard. We are happy to report that in the same year, as I mentioned earlier on, specific disability budget lines appeared in the national budget. And that this goes to show Fiji's commitment to Recommendation 3.1. I wish to inform the August House that LTA, there's so much talk about public transport. LTA has carried out awareness to respective public transport associations in relation to access to public transport for people with disabilities. Furthermore, LTA is conducting consultations, including the industry impact assessment, which was delayed due to the second wave of COVID-19. Mr. Speaker, our current requirement under the Quality Assurance Maintenance System for buses indicates the allocation of priority seating in the first 2 rows dedicated to people with disabilities. You don't need a signboard. You don't need a sign. If you see a person with a wheelchair, with a crutches, with some sort of walking, supportive walking device entering the bus, I'm sure we Fijians can do our part. Let's not look the other way because you have to give up your seat. Let's not look up the other way. Some of us do that. We look the other way. Let's provide all the assistance that we can do to these people. I remember in 2015, I stand to be corrected, we started an initiative, Show You Care initiative by the Ministry of Women. I think it's time to go back to that. But again, as Fijians, I appeal to people, whenever you see a person with some form of disability, and I think disabilities are quite, conspicuous, and we can give up the seat, but I would encourage the buses to have those seats located. The bus companies have been requested to adhere to this quality assurance maintenance system. However, there could be non-compliance issues, but we can work with that to ensure that if we need to put the sign, well, there has to be a sign. If it's not there, well, we need to put it there. And Mr. Speaker, so to conclude, I can assure the August House that since tabling the report of the Office of the Auditor General, the Fijian government, the National Council for Persons with Disability Machinery, partners like Pacific Disability Forum, ASCAP, International Disability Alliance, donor partners are all working together to improve accessibility issues. Mr. Speaker, let me say the ministry with our budgetary allocations and our work with the partners is also helping out in wheelchairs and other assistive devices. I understand wheelchairs are very expensive commodities, but we try to assist people when requests come to us, and we will continue to do so. That's again a commitment by the government through its budgetary allocation. Let me finish with the universal motto, "Nothing about us without us," symbolizes the principle of participation. And it has been by organizations of persons with disabilities in Fiji throughout the years to achieve the full participation and equalization of opportunities for and by and with persons with disability. Government, since ratification, has delivered on its promises to persons with disabilities. This includes the introduction of disability allowance, social economic empowerment of persons with disability, grants to organizations for persons with disability, housing assistance for persons with disability, early childhood intervention funding to Frank Hilton organization, sporting grants, grants to special organization, special education and disability scholarships of higher education. So the Fijian government is fully committed, and we will continue to enable our public spaces and transport fully accessible in order to fulfill its commitment to an inclusive, barrier-free and rights-based society for persons with disability. So it's not right to come here, Mr. Speaker, and talk all negative that the government has not done this, not done that. We have a government that is fully committed. In some areas, of course, where structures have already been built, getting owners to make sure the buildings are disability friendly is going to take some time. But we are doing all that is in our capacity to make sure that we honor the commitment that we have made, the international commitments and the local commitments, and the rights of our persons is protected. Thank you.